Hello, David.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Croc Month live stream. Today is World Croc Day.
Yep.
June 17th. What an exciting second best day of the year. Fourth
After
best
Christmas.
Fourth best day. Hello, everybody out there. As usual with our live streams, let us know that you can see us and hear us okay, because we are old enough to not ever trust technology. That's just the way that it happens.
The way we were raised.
If you can see us and hear us okay, say hello in the chat. Say hello. Give us a happy Croc Day, happy Croc Month. This is our second annual Croc Month live stream. We did this last year also on World Croc Day. We will have another live stream next month on World Snake Day, which is almost exactly a month away from this day. Hey, there's people that are in here. Shannon is here, and Quicksilver is here, and Cole and Ryan.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, everybody. Janelle. I'm not surprised that Quicksilver's on time. That makes a lot of sense.
We've been keeping you waiting, I'm sure.
Tap, 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 tap. Like Sonic. Like, tap, tap, tap. June...
I
heard the beginning of a joke.
One of my favorite Sonic bits I ever remember from one of the cartoons was one where they're like Robotnik has a thing that senses hypersonic speeds and shoots a missile at it. So Sonic has to walk everywhere, and he's just like, "This is exhausting. This is awful."
June here at Common Descent, June is Croc Month, where we celebrate Crocs all month long.
Yeah.
We have a whole bunch of cool stuff that's going on for that. The Croc Chat is a channel that is open just this month over in Discord, which has been full of cool Croc discussions and Croc pictures. A lot of our listeners have pictures of Crocs that they themselves have taken, which is very cool.
Yeah. I have some really good pictures I took when I was in Australia of Jack the Ripper, which is a 17-foot saltwater that I got to see in person.
I probably have pictures of that gator that we saw in South Carolina.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Should post
in addition to that, we have Croc-themed stuff coming up this coming weekend. Will be this year's Croc-themed episode.
Yeah.
So stay tuned for that.
Got it all recorded and ready to go.
And most biggest and bestest and most importantly, for this month, the Crocs and Snakes tier is open on Patreon. So if you go over to our Patreon, there is a special Crocs and Snakes tier that is only open in June. In July, it becomes the Snakes and Crocs tier. If you subscribe at that level, not only do you get all of the lower tier stuff, so you get a shout out and you get bonus content and you get to come to live streams, you get to ask patron questions, you also get Croc and Snake Month stickers and subscriptions that we receive at this tier during June and July will contribute to charitable donations that we will be making towards reptile conservation at the end of the summer. This year, we are donating to 3 organizations. Our classics, the Crocodile Research Coalition, which is organized and run by Dr. Tellez, who was on the podcast during our first Croc Month celebrations. Save the Snakes, which is in a bunch of places, and we had Dr. Nike on to talk about Save the Snakes. This year we are adding the hang on, I have to get the name right. The National Parks Conservation Association. That's what it is. Yes. Here in the US, which supports our national parks, which are not only home to wonderful, beautiful natural wilderness, lots of crocs and snakes, and also the things that crocs and snakes eat.
Yes.
In those places. Plus, 2025 is a great time to support the national parks because, boy, they need it.
Yep.
For our Croc Day live stream, we're going to hang out and talk to everybody about Crocs.
Yeah.
If you are here in the chat, chime in. If you have questions or comments about Crocs, feel free. This is your space to get all your Croc thoughts out, and Will, the Croc guy, is right here to respond to them. In addition to that, while we're waiting... Cole made a donation. Thank you so much, Cole.
Thank you.
And some Crocs. We really appreciate that. While the audience is thinking about that, we also have gathered some Croc news.
Yeah. Most of the Croc news that comes out gets talked about in the news section.
Yes.
So these are bits that either didn't or are like papers that didn't get like a popular news article.
Yeah. What's going on in the world, like the last 12 months in the world of Crocs?
Let's see some of the interesting ones. This one, I feel like I read this one, and so I don't know if I took notes on it for news at one point or if I looked at it for... I feel like I read this one before, so I don't remember when this one came across my table, but it was a news about pseudotsuchians, so the ancestral group cousins of crocs that were found in near shore deposits. So they were found in like shallow water, but definitely marine deposits. And it was a shock to the researchers because it was a very clearly terrestrial animal,
Right.
quite a bit into the water. And they found like it took a bit to confirm that it is indeed a terrestrial animal, because they were like, surely
It's in the ocean.
yeah, surely there's got to be a mistake here. It just looks like one of the land pseudotsuchians. Like, no, it definitely is a terrestrial animal, but that it seems there were a number of pseudotsuchian lineages that were adapted to be semi-aquatic or were in the shallow areas or shore areas. Maybe they're getting washed out, or maybe they were like, like the polar bears of pseudotsuchians.
Right, going out there to hunt for fish or whatever.
Yeah, or they were swimming between places more frequently. But there seemed to be a contingency of near shore, maybe semi-aquatic, or at least spending time right near in the water, pseudotsuchians.
Interesting.
The one they named also has a crazy name.
Oh, wow. I can't see that from all the way over here.
Yeah, right here.
You'll have to zoom in. Hang on, I'm going to do it. Oh, okay. Bungwig Wishingasuchus.
Yes.
That's pretty good. Where is it from? Nevada.
Yes.
What is Bungwig Wishingasuchus then?
I don't know. I don't remember if it said what the name was based off of.
Wishingasuchus. Huh. Interesting. All right. Well, that's cool.
All right, here we go.
No, there it is. Yeah.
Word that means catching fish in Shoshone. And combined with Greek.
That's what I was like, what language is this? And then when it was Nevada, I was like, okay, it must be a Native American language. That's cool.
And yeah, catching fish. Like the suggestion that maybe this was a, if not a swimming predator, like a wading predator. Like I was picturing also like maybe grizzly bears. Like maybe it's like,
yeah.
I'm not swimming out in the shallow ocean, but I'm wading in the long shore areas.
And if an animal dies there, it could get washed out.
Yes.
Or the other order of events could happen.
So, interesting place for pseudotsuchians to be found.
Cool. We got a bunch more comments here that I will interrupt the news to talk about. Well, we got a ton more people. Lexi, Kayleen, Ollie, Garrick, Jessica.
Welcome, everyone.
Happy Croc Month. Shannon says, Snake Month. You're early, but I Lexi also says, Happy Pride.
Time and place.
Happy Pride Month, everybody.
Happy Pride.
Spoonfed Pig asks, when is Turtle Month?
We're still waiting on them to get here. Taking their time. Slow and steady may win the race, but it's a long race.
Marco says, Happy Croc Month, Happy Pride Month. It's the best time to be openly gator.
That, I'm going to have to remember that one.
Ali asks, can you tell from fossils if a crocodilian will see you in a while or later?
Ooh, very good question. I mean, I feel like since a lot of their fossils are teeth, that makes it tricky.
Yes.
Yeah.
To know when you're going to see them again.
Yeah.
If you have a whole skull,
yes.
If you have a whole intact skull, that can help.
Then, because you can get brain scans, so you'll know how well they were going to remember that they said they were going to see you later.
You have to get you put a croc in a room with a bunch of different stimulus and see how it reacts. Does it get, you run a squirrel by, does it get distracted?
Yes.
Jamie is here. Zelfie is here. Ryan asks, which croc is best? Crocs, beats, Battlestar Galactica.
Well, there's really two schools of thought.
Amazing. Zelfia asks a question, like a real question. What's the croc with the most unusual body shape? Did any crocodilomorphs look uncroc-ish?
I think so. I think the two ends of the spectrum for like especially what we're familiar with, the least crocky crocs would be some of the really terrestrial ones, especially some of the small ones. There were some that had very long, like almost cat proportioned limbs, like long limbs, fairly short body, and then this really short muzzle, so like a little dog snout. And those were very different looking. The earliest ancestors of crocs, even more so. Like those look like little four-legged dinosaurs.
Yes, it's like a four-legged T-Rex.
Yeah.
Although like Simosuchus looks like a armadillo.
Yeah.
Reptile.
Yes. And so you get weird ones there, and then on the other end is the really, really marine members, the Metriorhynchids, that got fully lost their scales, turned all their limbs into flippers, got a tail fluke, and basically everything but a dorsal fin.
Right.
And became dolphin crocs, became shark crocs. And those still are croc silhouetted.
Sure.
But until you
it's
look
like a mosasaur.
Yes. Like as soon as you look any closer than the silhouette, it's like, whoa, their skull is also very uniquely shaped because they had big salt glands and adaptations for being in the ocean like that. So yeah, those are probably the least crocky crocs I can think of.
Cool.
And then you get just some that are crocs shaped in the body, weird faces. Like the big Leganosuchus and stuff, the pancake crocs that have the giant flat jaws and weird stuff like that. Bizarre.
Quicksilver asks, what do you two think about the alleged new species of neotropical crocs? How valid do you think they are?
We talked about that in the news. Honestly, it kind of have to just wait and see. Because croc species are like that, where this happened with the West African crocodile, which it got split off from a population that was considered Nile crocodiles, but then they noticed that they're genetically distinct enough, and that's with basically all the modern species that we are identifying as new species. It's usually genetic work that is the bulk, but with the neotropical ones, they also were able to notice consistent differences in the proportions of the skull. Nothing crazy. It was, if I remember right, one was just a bit wider and shorter, and the other one was a bit narrower and longer, but they were consistently broader and shorter and narrower and longer.
Right.
So it's I feel like the question of how valid they are really will come down to what your personal opinion of species should be. You know, that you get the common joke that comes up with scientists is you got lumpers and splitters. Those that are like, yeah, if they can make babies, it should be the same species. Right. And those are like, if there's a consistent genetic difference, that should be at least a subspecies, if not a new species.
And some of them are like, well, if it looks like a dire wolf.
Yes. Yes.
Now, this is a thing that happened with, I think it was last year, the new anaconda species.
Yeah.
That was suggested, but received a bunch of, not backlash, but criticism, like scientific reanalysis, and it sounds like it has not been widely accepted as a valid split of species. And so, that'll be, we'll see what happens.
That's basically how species go, is that it's just a paper gets put forward saying, we have found these differences, we are suggesting and promoting the establishment of a new species, and then the scientific community either accepts or doesn't accept. And if it starts getting used in more papers as a valid species because they found that research convincing, then the species becomes valid. If no one uses it and when they do a crocodile research paper, then it just doesn't really gain any steam, and they all kind of go, yeah, not to me, it's not. I am not convinced that is different enough. So yeah, I have no specific opinion. We deal with bones, so like
they're all the same. They're all crocs to us.
So it's one of those where it's like, I am always excited for a new croc species, but there is a part of me that's like, yeah, but it looks the same as the others. So it's like, there's nothing exciting, morphologically for me to be like, ooh. So like I'm on board, but I have no stance.
A couple quick notes, and then I'll let you talk more about the news. Stephanie's here, Lydia's here. Marco said Openly Gator was a character in the Queer Duck animated series.
Cool.
And before we get, oh my goodness, Just Arts, oh no, I can't see the whole name. Just Arts or something, made a donation.
Thank you.
And said, can't stay to watch, we'll see it later, but want to say thank you for what you do, and I can now finally put voices to faces.
Yes.
Thank you so much for supporting us and for your wonderful donation to us. That's really lovely.
And hope the faces didn't disappoint.
That was Dylan waving.
Dylan waving.
What else? What other news do we got while we're waiting for more? I'll let the comments build up.
Yes. Another news. Which one was this? I have to make sure I'm
Just
remembering.
Arts Creations. That's what the whole name is.
There we go.
There it is. Great. You rock, Just Arts Creations.
Thank you. Another bit of news was a new gavialoid from, this is late Cretaceous, if I remember right. And they were describing a new gavialoid. So gavials is the group that is our modern gharial, and currently, based off of the most up-to-date research, the false gharial.
Right.
They are both grouped under gavialids.
For now.
The false gharial, as the name suggests, has not always been grouped with them. It used to be grouped closer to crocs, like crocodiles. This study was looking at some fossil gavialids and was talking about that fact of that the relationship between gavialids is often very hard to sort out because the long, thin snout is a very convergent trait for many groups. There's lots of groups of crocs that have what we call longirostrine snouts. This study was looking at these fossil groups using this new specimen and this just new material, not a new species, to try and sort that out, and found that a bunch of the ones that had been grouped under gavialids actually grouped out near or in other longirostrine groups.
Gotcha. So the Tomistoma, the false gharial problem, but with fossils.
Yes.
This looks like a gharial, but when we take a closer look, it might not actually be one.
And like, to give it a good example, what's the name of the group? The Thoracosaurs is a whole group of other longirostrine crocs from the fossil record.
Yep.
And so, this has been a thing with crocs for a extreme amount of their history, that having long, thin snouts is just a really useful way to be a croc, evidently, because we have multiple groups today that do it. The gharials, the slender snout croc from Africa, the freshwater crocodile from Australia, and even things like the Orinoco crocodile, and arguably some others, but those are typically the ones that come up, all have very thin snouts. It's a good way to be a crocodile. It makes it good for catching stuff in the water, but also many of these still can feed on a wide variety of prey, so not a limiting factor necessarily.
Yeah, it's interesting how common it is among crocs, given how uncommon that is in other animals.
Yeah.
Because, like, some other animals have, like, there are fish that have the
Yes.
long, pointy nose. Dolphins
Yep.
have not quite to the degree of, like, a gharial.
But some fossil ones.
And some fossil ones do.
Yeah.
But outside of that, like, other reptiles, like lizards, don't tend to do that. Outside of dolphins, mammals don't tend to do that. Salamanders, as far as I know, don't even do that. So even croc-like things. But for crocs, it seems to be a very good way to be a croc that is almost unique to crocs.
Yeah.
Which is very interesting.
Well, in all the groups that, came up, and like there were some ancient amphibian ancestors.
Yeah, there were some temnospondyls that did it as well. Yes.
It seems to be an aquatic thing.
Yep.
It seems to be, if you are a large-bodied aquatic predator having a long, thin, toothed snout is a really great, alligator gar or normal gar. Alligator gars have wider ones, but gar have that.
Yep.
And
Janelle has pointed out birds also do that as well. Herons, and of course Spinosaurs.
Yes.
There are theropod dinosaurs with that.
And as is with the Spinosaurs, it's been attributed to a fish-eating diet because you can have a slender snout that moves through the water, cuts through the water better than a wide one would. And, you can reach farther to grab them, full of teeth to grab the slippery fish. And it's a fascinating question because for a lot of them, it does seem to be the case, but there's also tons of times where that doesn't seem to match up, where we have like the false gharial who's been known to eat a wide variety of things, including large mammals, pigs and people.
Yeah, off the land, or even isn't there records of, I think this is false gharials eating monkeys?
Yeah,
which I could have just been on the ground, but in my mind, the image is that it jumped up and grabbed a monkey off of a branch.
Yeah, so like
which I might just be making that part up.
That's definitely the more fun image,
Yes.
But a monkey coming down to drink is also equally possible.
Yes.
But yeah, it is not a guarantee that every single long slender snout croc is a strict fish eater. Some, like today's Indian gharial, can only take small aquatic prey because their snout is so thin it's actually very fragile. While the false gharial snout is much more robust. My favorite story I ever read was a keeper who had worked with Indian gharials before, and so was used to being very cautious around them when he went into the habitat. And he always had his stick because that's what you that's what you use whenever you go into a habitat with crocodilians. You have a stick just to put between you and them, not to hit them and not to poach them, but just you can put it there. And when
they can't do this very effectively.
So when they come at you, you just put it between them and they go ha 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 ha, and just kind of get stuck on the stick. And he was used to being very careful with it around them because if they swung their head and hit the stick, they could hurt themselves.
Sure.
And he was using that same mentality when he went in with a bunch of false gharials. And then one of them didn't, like that he was there, swung its head at them, snapped the snick in half with its snout, and he hopped the fence in one jump.
Oh no!
But he was he was shocked by how robust their snout was.
Even though it's thin.
Even though it is the second thinnest snout for crocodilians today.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's this great history. Another one of the newses was also dealing with a giant Longirostrine crocs from the Miocene, which was a heyday for crocs in general, but these kinds of crocs. There were a bunch of also giant gavialid and thracosaur crocs, like 20, 30, pushing 40 feet long.
So this isn't just a common way to be, it is a very effective...
Yes.
You can be a giant with... and like... some of our largest birds today, like herons, Janelle, I think, brought up herons, are large fish-eating birds. Spinosaurs were extremely large theropods.
Including one of the largest theropods we know of.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's this interesting... It seems to be specialized for one thing, but it's very much like herons, where it's like, it's a fish-eating bird until you watch it catch a squirrel.
Yes. Or like a pelican.
Yeah.
Or you watch a pelican eat a pigeon or something.
And it's like, it seems like it is this very narrow, specialized feature, but in fact, it was actually super, super widespread and super effective. Many of the fossil gharials were also marine, were swimming around out in the ocean. Not quite as, they weren't flippered, but they were ocean-living gavialid, or gharial-shaped at least, crocs, which is fascinating.
We got a bunch more comments here that I'll read through. Trivite Official said, stopping in to say, love the podcast, keep up the good work. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Jamie, hi Jamie, says, what is the alternative universe where crocs are the dominant life form? Take us on a speculative evolution journey, please. Now, this is something that I know you've put some thought into.
Yes. Yep. And it's one of those where, like, there's two fun routes for this. One is the, like, actually...
right.
Which is the Triassic.
Which is the Triassic, when that was the case.
Before dinosaurs became the dominant land predators, at least. Like, the large land herbivores were still not crocs at that time, but the Pseudosuchians, the early group of the Suchia side of Archosaurs, so the croc side of the lineage, were the dominant predators and included many of the large herbivores. The whole big-bodied ecosystem was largely made out of cousins of crocs.
Right, and you had big herbivores like the Etosaurs. You had big predators like Rauisuchians.
Yep.
You had semi-aquatic groups like Phytosaurs.
Yep.
All of these. So the alternate reality in this case is really just the Triassic extinction doesn't happen.
Yes.
And dinosaurs never get that opening that they took advantage of, and then the Mesozoic is just crocs.
And then, like, you would have gotten probably equivalent diversity that we saw with dinosaurs, because we see a lot of the same lifestyles re-evolve. Like, we see herbivorous crocs evolve multiple times throughout the Mesozoic. Right. So there would have been a huge diversity, but Etosaurs would have absolutely kept going. We would have gotten probably giant members of them.
Yeah, well, and you see a lot of overlap between what dinosaurs did and what those early Pseudosuchians did.
Yeah.
So, like, Etosaurs were basically crocodilian ankylosaurs.
Yep.
You had bipedal crocodiliforms.
Postosuchus is often interpreted as being, if not, like, facultatively, like, all the time bipedal, very, very effectively bipedal.
Yeah. And crocs would have done what dinosaurs didn't do and also take over coastal and aquatic environments.
Yes.
Because crocs are extra good at that, and dinosaurs are apparently not very good at that.
Yeah. Which always brings up the question of, did dinosaurs not do it as much because crocs were doing it? Because, our modern lineage went into being semi-aquatic in the Jurassic and then stayed there.
Yeah.
And so there have been croc-ish, croc-like crocodilomorphs since the Jurassic. And before that, in the Triassic, it was Phytosaurs, which were super, super successful. So yes, like, that is the real-world answer. In modern days, I've often thought about, like, if crocs were the, main surviving group after a giant extinction, or if, you populated a terraformed world with crocs, that you would probably see a lot of those same shapes show up. Like, Cuban crocs, I absolutely could see becoming more terrestrial and hunting more on land.
Entering sort of that small to medium carnivore, like the coyote bobcat niche. Terrestrial crocs often fit in that sort of area. And if they could then go back to Rauisuchian style predators, now that's like big cat style predators.
I could see a lot of the like the little caimans and dwarf crocodiles becoming like basically like little badgers, like being more on land and burrowing and going after food that way. And things like the saltwater crocodile could absolutely become big, massive marine predators and just living out in the ocean full time.
Yeah. It was pretty fun.
Yeah. Beautiful world to think of.
Marco asks, are the Abanda cave crocs full-time cave dwellers?
Oh, yeah.
This came up in the news a couple of years ago, I think, of the cave-dwelling croc population.
Yes.
And if I remember correctly, I don't think they were full-time cave dwellers.
No, I don't think so. I'm trying to remember I think those were dwarf crocodiles, but I'd have to double check. I think they were dwarf crocodiles. And I think some of those were like the famous orange crocodiles that had changed color because of the minerals in the water that they were
I think that's true.
hanging out in. To my knowledge, they weren't full-time cave dwellers. they had moved in there through waterways and could leave if they wanted to. Crocs are a great animal for spending a lot of time in the cave because they are low energy. They, don't need light to be able to hunt. They have great senses for being able to navigate in the dark.
Caves are a nice, consistent temperature.
Yep. But absolutely, I think that they would not be able to survive there permanently because I don't know if that temperature... I guess it depends on the cave, but the temperature being consistent is great, but it also means that you can't heat up to do certain activities.
Yeah. Well, and I think caves tend to be, for whatever region they're in, like spring temperatures.
Yeah.
So it's not going to be it's not going to be as cold as winter, but it's also not going to be as warm as summer.
Yes.
So you're really in the middle. Caves also tend not to have a lot of food.
Yes.
This is why there aren't giant cave animals.
Yeah, exactly. And
because food is very limited.
Even the smallest croc is a big animal for a cave.
Yes.
And I don't know, this is getting into like the biomechanics of crocs and, health and whatnot, but I'm pretty sure they need sunlight to grow correctly. Most reptiles need some form of source of light to, process vitamin D and produce that and everything to grow correctly. And if they were in the cave for extended periods, I think that you would get malformed crocs.
Yeah, you don't really get full-time cave reptiles.
Yeah.
There are reptiles that hang out in caves and do quite well in caves, but there aren't cave reptiles the same way that there are cave fish and cave salamanders and cave bugs. Birds, reptiles, and mammals don't seem to do the full-on cave. And mammals, there are burrowers.
Yes.
Who are doing kind of a similar thing. But with reptiles, there isn't even that much burrowing outside, especially in crocs and most lizards. A lot of lizards are not. So yeah, you don't really get cave adaptations for reptiles.
Makes me wonder, worm lizards and worm snakes. Is there any notable difference with them? Do we see anything that sets them apart for being out of the sun so much?
Yeah, I mean, they often are... I don't think that they're unpigmented, but they are often pink and lighter colors and less pigmented. They also often reduce their eyes.
Yes.
So you do get, and then they're shaped for burrowing.
Yeah.
Lydia said, here's another fun what if. Cast species and people in the next summer blockbuster, Crocs versus Snakes. Whoever wins, we win.
Yes.
Cast species and people in Crocs. Well, listen, if snakes are going to stand a chance in Crocs versus Snakes, we're going to have some of the big ones.
Yes.
Anacondas are going to be our best bet for dealing one-on-one with Crocs, although we do have the numbers.
Yes.
I'm trying to just airdrop a bunch of snakes. Samuel L. Jackson will be in the movie, and he'll be on the plane with a bunch of snakes, and then we'll airdrop snakes down.
And I'm picturing what kind of movie is it? Is it one where there are people interacting with these species, or is it an animated movie and each species is a character voiced by who we pick?
All right, okay.
I still think Samuel L. Jackson should be.
Yes. Well, who are good voices for Crocs? I think you want to get at least some of them have to be those like Michael Clark Duncan, who is not available. Kind of those voices. James Earl Jones is still around.
Yeah,
let's get James Earl Jones to be an old wizened Croc.
Oh, I just thought of the person, but I'm blanking on his name.
Vin Diesel.
I almost have it. Vin Diesel would be a good Croc.
And whoever played Killer Croc in the bad Suicide Squad.
Yes. Yep. Oh man, what's his name? He's Goliath from Gargoyles. He's
that's
Dr. Facilier.
Keith David.
Thank you.
Keith David.
I had a
choice.
K name, but I couldn't. David needs to be
Brad Garrett. would be a great
yeah.
choice. It's just it's the deep, like resonant voices.
Well, yeah,
that
you need
fit
to be able
really
to a voice that sounds like you could bellow.
Yes.
That's the vibe.
I think that snakes would be voiced excellently by, like, I'm imagining, I can't think of a good, but like a little bit of sass and a little bit of like that like lilting. I think snakes should sound a little bit like elves from Lord of the Rings.
Yep.
Let's say it's a little bit musical. It's it's a little bit of that sort of like hypnotic. Maybe not so far as Ka.
Yes.
But like something like that.
Yep. Yeah, I was trying to think of people.
Well, listen, Anya Taylor-Joy.
yeah.
Well, Anya Taylor-Joy would be a great snake. That would be fantastic. Chris Pratt can be a croc.
yes.
You can have Chris Pratt. Charlie Day will be a snake.
Yes.
I think Jack Black would be a croc.
Jack Black would be a croc. I think Ryan Reynolds
yes,
would be a snake.
Ryan Reynolds would be a snake. That's excellent.
And then you can have the fun weekend.
And then Hugh Jackman can be a croc.
Yes, and he's got to be the salty.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. He would be a salty.
Yeah, he's either got to be the salty or the like, depending on which kind of Hugh Jackman we go with. If we go with the Wolverine Jackman, he's salty.
It's animated, so both.
Yeah, there you go. He can do.
He could be like Wolverine can be like a big croc, and then authentic Hugh Jackman could be an Australian snake.
Yeah, or I was gonna say the freshwater, which is the smaller.
Freshwater, yes. I think Hugh Jackman has the vibe that I want from, like Ryan Reynolds does. Neil Patrick Harris, can be one of our snakes.
Yeah,
it's all theater people.
Yes,
that's really the snakes are all theater kids.
Yep. And then
also probably there will be some women in this movie,
right? Yeah,
but so far.
I was going to say Scarlett Johansson because she's already been a snake.
She was a snake.
She's been a snake, so she has prior experience.
I don't remember the name of the sticking with our Ryan Reynolds Hugh Jackman line. I don't remember the name of the actor who played Cassandra Nova, but they would be a snake.
Yes,
I don't remember their name, but they get to be a snake.
Yes,
this is great.
Yeah.
I love, now we have to cast the different species. You only have to cast like 25.
Yeah, no, I could get it done in this live stream if I really needed to.
Half of them are Hugh Jackman, so that works out really well.
Well, and it's
amazing.
I love also things that do this. Is I like putting personalities to species. Because like I've thought about that a ton. Where like gators are absolutely chill, laid back.
Yes.
Like good old boys, but in the progressive way.
Channing Tatum.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Just chill Bayou boys.
Now, we have some suggestions in here, which is great. Marco brought up Benedict Cumberbatch.
Yes.
Who absolutely could be a croc. Janelle says a Joa Ando for a snake. I don't know who that is.
Ooh, I recognize that name, though, but I'm blanking.
A Joa Ando sounds like a person from Star Wars. Not like an actor in Star Wars, but like a
that
character.
name sounds Star Warsy.
What was the in Star Wars? Oh, I just had a Star Wars thought. Who was a? No, the other thought that I had that made me think of is now I can't remember her name. Okoye.
Yes.
Black Panther.
Yeah.
Okoye would be an awesome snake.
Oh, I feel like Okoye should be like a cobra. Like
yes.
Something
or like
impressive.
A mamba.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the impressive, like, had some intimidation about aspect to them.
We could have Matthew McConaughey as like a rattlesnake. Marco suggests we got to have RuPaul as a snake.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, a boa.
As a
boa.
This should just be what the rest of the live stream is. And then Elizabeth said you should get some of the classic voice actor choices like Mark Hamill and Jonathan Frakes. Mark
Hamill's a snake. I think. Like
I could see him being
voice.
both, but yeah, no, the Joker voice is really
like that.
I'll take him. You
very...
could have. Hang on. I have to remember John DiMaggio.
Yes. That's
John
who I was gonna
DiMaggio
say.
would be a great.
Oh yeah. John, I think if I were
Marco said a pink boa, a rainbow boa.
yes, a rainbow boa.
It's just the fluorescent.
Yes.
Yeah, that's our RuPaul snake.
Yes, Channing Tatum's definitely
It
is
could
my
be a
alligator.
gator doing his Gambit voice.
Yes, that's exactly. So Channing Tatum's got to be my gator because I loved his Gambit voice.
I was gonna say, we said Mark Hamill, John DiMaggio, Billy West would be a snake.
Yes.
But then Tara Strong would be a snake too.
Yes. Yes.
This is great.
Yeah.
Man. All right. Anyway, we have to get off of this because we'll just do this.
Yep.
Go on to Discord later and we'll cast every species of croc.
Yes.
Maybe I'll cast like families of snakes.
There
or
you
like
go.
one from every family.
Yeah.
I don't know enough actors for this.
Right.
Go to the Discord and suggest your ideas for who.
Yes.
That's a much better way to do it.
Absolutely.
So let's do that. We can CGI AI Carrie Fisher as one of the snakes.
as an extinct species.
As an
Too soon.
Too soon. Tarkin can be a croc.
Yes.
All right, let's do one more and then we'll talk about some more news. Garrick says, are there any particular gaps in the Pseudotsuchian fossil record that you're extra curious about? Transition points, times, places, etc. Or like ecologies?
Yeah, that's a good question. There's not ones that I'm like super familiar with. I know that
they're pretty all over. Like,
yeah,
it's a pretty robust record.
Yeah, crocs have a good fossil record.
I guess the earliest ones are probably less well known.
Yeah, and there's lots of examples where we have very partial specimens. You know, crocs have fossilized pretty well because crocs are pretty tough animals. But there's lots of examples where it's like we've got a skull or we've got a jaw, but we don't have the rest of the animal. And there are many examples where having the rest of the animal would be nice because, you know, typically it's very easy to go, all right, and the rest of it was shaped like a croc. But maybe it wasn't.
Right.
Maybe it was one of the ones that was running around or doing something weird. And so there's a bunch of those are the gaps that I'm often the most like there's lots of examples where it's like we've got teeth from this fossil site. We know crocodiles were here, but that's all we have is teeth.
Yeah.
And so you can identify croc from tooth easy, but what kind of croc you can't get to. So that stuff.
Here's something we're missing from the Pseudotsuchian fossil record that I would like to see is integument.
Yes. Ooh, very good point.
I don't know that we have a lot of like skin remnants. I want to know if the early Pseudotsuchians had feathers.
Yes.
That would be a very useful bit of information.
Yep. Because you get really nice crocs preserved that have their osteoderms.
Yep.
So it feels kind of like you've got skin, but I don't actually know if I'm sure there are some, but I don't know that I've ever heard of skin impressions or anything from any croc cousin.
Yeah. All right, what other news do we have?
Let's see.
At least one more news.
Yeah.
But our audience is being very engaged, so this is super fun.
One bit of news was one talking about reinterpreting diversification rates of crocs using cryptic diversity. So basically, when we look at and you know this happens with lots of lineages, but with crocs it definitely happens that when you look at the recent history of crocodilians, we see diminishing rates of diversity. You know, that their diversification, the amount of time, you know, new species showing up within a given amount of time is slowing down as you get closer and closer to today. But this paper was making the point that that's only going off of the species we know.
Mm-hmm.
If we were to try to estimate the species, you know, that we didn't know, then, or how did they put it? Let's see. Based off of sequences of 45 lineages compared to our recognized 26 species, they looked at re-looked at the diversification estimates and found that it actually was an increasing amount.
Right.
So that the picture can change very much depending on what part of the data you're looking at. This is also getting into parts that I don't fully understand how they're calculating those lineages.
But these ways to this is a big subject of discussion and research in especially ecology and wildlife studies, is how do we figure out just how much actual diversity there is, how many species there are, what the evolutionary histories between these various groups are, because it's so easy to miss some of it.
Yes. And this comes up when you hear things talk about like the rainforest of, we estimate there are this many undiscovered species still in the rainforest. And, we do that based off of how many we found, what density we find in an area, and how much that suggests there should be in the rest of the rainforest. And these estimates are important because if I just go out into my yard and note down the animals I see, then I am hugely underrepresenting how many animals are actually out there, because I'm not looking in the dirt and I'm not looking inside, the hollow trees or whatnot. Trying to do that for the fossil record is also important of, this is what it looks like was happening with this group, but we just may not have found the many species that would change this picture. So we need to take that under consideration, that the numbers we have right now may be partial. So yeah.
Cool.
Interesting concept.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, just how to, the research on how to best study the things we're trying to study is very interesting.
Yeah.
Alice asked, I joined the Snakes and Crocs tier last year. Does that contribute to charity again this year? Yes. If you are at the tier, if you're still in the tier, you're lumped into the contribution this year. Absolutely. And if you are above, if you're already at a higher tier on our Patreon, you don't need to drop down to that tier. Just let us know you want to contribute, and we will make it so.
Absolutely.
Elizabeth asks, if you were going to make up a mythological creature based on a croc, which real croc would you base it on, and what sort of powers would it have?
Ooh.
Sort of spooky in reverse. That's fun.
Yeah, I like that. There's lots of mythical crocs in the real world.
Yeah.
And I don't know any like in super detail, because many of them are just like, there are stories about them, but they haven't gotten a lot of media coverage outside of
they're not in movies and stuff.
Yeah,
very much.
I think if I were to make a mythical croc, one of the things I'd like to focus on is their individual longevity, that they're very long-lived animals.
Mm-hmm.
Like, crocs can reach 60, 80, maybe even 100 in the best cases, but like, they live about as long as we do. So and we are a long-lived animal. Like, humans live a surprisingly long time. So like, long-lived, they've also been around a long time. So like, making it some eternal creature.
Ooh, yeah.
I like that. I like the idea that there's been something this shape on the planet since life came out of the sea.
Yes.
Like, since vertebrates came out of the sea, this shape of animal has been on the planet. And so they are just a core aspect of life on Earth outside the ocean.
The first thing that comes to my mind is a croc-like mythological figure that is a protector and guardian.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Because crocs are excellent parents. They build nests and they guard nests. Some of them, like gharials, will actually share the duty of guarding all the nests. They famously carry... There is something so evocative about a caring, protective parent carrying babies around in the mouth. And the idea... Well, there's a snake example of this, which is there are... I think this is king cobras, will build a nest and then coil up on top of the nest. Because maybe the best way to protect a nest is to put a king cobra on top of it.
Yeah, who's going to mess with that nest now?
Crocs have that sort of like, there is something I could make a D&D deity out of this.
Yes.
This idea of like, yes, the great alligator goddess who holds us all within her jaws.
Yep.
And that it is a sign of incredible, delicate nurturing and extraordinary power and intimidation.
Yes.
At the same time.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put my babies in the last place any animal wants to go, which is the mouth of a crocodile.
Well, it also feels like there'd be a great metaphor to this mythological creature or D&D god of like, those things that can keep us the most safe are often the most dangerous. Like
Yeah.
using a sword
it's a
to protect.
double,
Yeah.
If it's walking on you're safe, but if you make a wrong move, you're getting swallowed by this crocodile.
Yeah. Well, and it's that whole thing of like, having a sword can keep you safe, but it is also now the most dangerous thing that is always near you.
Yes.
That you are purposely keeping something dangerous. It's the whole gun safety thing of like, if you have a gun, you need to lock it up because they're dangerous.
Yeah.
And like, yes, it's there to protect you, but if someone accidentally gets it, it's now the most dangerous thing near you. And I do like that.
Maybe I'll make a crocodilian pantheon.
Yes.
That would be so cool.
Yes.
Oh, all right. The next time you make a character, make a cleric, and I'll make your croc god.
Yes.
Love it. Oh my goodness. Quicksilver asks, do you think that zoos and other such places are effective in teaching about animals, specifically crocs, or do they tend to just be sightseeing spots?
It really depends on the venue you go to, in my opinion. There are definitely general trends. If it's an AZA facility, then not only is adequate care a required part of their standards, but so is education. That is part of the AZA standards, is that you have to have a certain amount of education. You can't just have them there and do nothing about it. Just take care of them. So AZA facilities usually do a pretty good job. There's still going to be variety. There's still going to be, differences that you may or may not agree with as much. Like SeaWorld is an AZA facility, but it's also a theme park aquarium.
Right. So it's got multiple priorities going on.
And so there's definitely aspect. Yeah, same with Busch Gardens is AZA. And so you can get examples like that where this is not how I would approach an animal facility to teach the public, but it is definitely better than many of your non-AZA examples.
Right. There are bad zoos, unfortunately.
Now, there are plenty of places that are good zoos that aren't AZA. They just couldn't afford, or they're not quite able to meet all of the specific. Like, we don't quite have enough space to build the enclosure to your specifications, but we're doing a really good job with what we do have.
Right.
So you can get ones that are doing really quite a solid job, but just aren't AZA.
I think there's also something, we want to avoid exploiting animals as much as we can, but at the same time there is something so evocative and memorable about seeing an animal in person that I am fully, there is so much good that comes from documentaries and books and all sorts of different forms of information. But the ability to go see a crocodile in person is just a whole different perspective. And I think that that's something, again, not every zoo is doing it perfectly, but that is something that is such a benefit for education. It's why animal demonstrations are so good for education. Again, when they're done responsibly and well, because it is a wholly different experience seeing a picture or a video of it and seeing it in person and getting to be near it and breathing the same air as it or hearing the noises it makes.
Well, it'll be different person to person. There's plenty of people who the documentary will have had plenty of impact, But there are lots of people where a documentary or a book, the things in that documentary or that book are no different than a thing on some other program on TV or some other story in a book. Like, yes, they academically know those are real animals in that documentary, but really they're just things on the TV. And it hasn't clicked in their brain. Just because they either just haven't thought of it that way or just haven't been exposed to the natural world in that way.
Well, there's also, you notice different things. When I've had this experience a bunch where you meet an animal and you're looking at just like the way it moves and you go, oh, I've seen videos of these a bunch of times and I never noticed this thing that I'm noticing now that it's right in front of me, now that I'm seeing it at rest or at leisure in a posture that I've never seen one recent example that really sticks in my mind is Nora and I went to, I think this was the Bronx Zoo, and there was a green anaconda who was there, and I am very familiar with information and videos and stuff about green anacondas, and this green anaconda had a rabbit that was placed in the enclosure. It was dead rabbit. And we sat there for like 20 minutes waiting to see if it was going to eat this rabbit, and it didn't. It just kind of nudged it and moved around it. And it wasn't quite playing with it, but she was exploring it, and she was like taking her time. She would move away from it. She was clearly interested in it, but not very enthusiastic about it. And that was a side of anacondas that I've never seen before, because every time you see an anaconda in video, it's either doing absolutely nothing or eating something.
Yes.
And so you get this real experience, like the difference between visiting your friend's pets and having your own pet.
Yes.
It's a much more personal experience.
Like, you get to see them in the in-between scenes.
Yes.
That aren't shown in the documentary because they would make boring TV.
Absolutely.
But you get to see those moments. So I think, to answer your question more straightforwardly, I think in general they do a good job for education, because all the points you made of just the fact of getting to see the animal can be monumentous, like can have a huge effect. But also I do think on average, even the not as polished facilities are still doing a not terrible job. Like, sure. I've been to some before where it's like, this is not great. This is not, like, not ideal. But they're still not just lying about the animals, and they don't have zero information. They do still have something there, because even the, like, most just in it for the money facility knows that education is a part of entertainment, that people like those facts. Those are, we call them fun facts for a reason.
And learning is fun and interesting.
Like,
it's cool and exciting to learn things you didn't know before.
They'll probably lean more toward the sensational stuff at times, and they might get things wrong every now and then, but even they will still have general knowledge stuff, which for some people will be more than they've ever known about that animal.
Well, and
so
to Quicksilver's point about them being sightseeing spots, absolutely a lot of the people going to a zoo on any given day are not going there expecting to be educated, right? A lot of people, your audience does have to meet you partway there. But even in those cases, a lot of zoos are set up in such a way that it is almost impossible to go to a zoo and not learn or see or hear something that you hadn't before. Just because if you walk around the zoo, you're seeing, I'll see, every time I go to a zoo, you'll see this where you stand and you're looking over the thing and there's like some unexcited dad who's like, kids are all like, wah, bah, bah, and you'll see this dad who's like, I'm just dragging my kids around this place, and they'll go, never seen that animal before. And it's like, great, we did it.
Yep.
Dad did not come here to learn something. Dad came here to get out of the house. and Dad could not care less about what's going on here. But there's like a weird antelope thing.
Yes. Now you know what a hornbill is.
Yes, Dad's never seen before, and he went, "Huh? There was that weird animal at the. What is this thing?" And then he reads the sign and he goes, "Huh? Never heard of that." And he might forget it tomorrow.
Yeah.
But like, there's a lot of that passive experience and education that happens when you're in that sort of surrounding.
Yes. And this is also, I had this thought just a second ago. This is speaking about American zoos. I do know that zoo culture in other countries can be quite different. I've read things about the fact that not all zoos in Japan, but that there are facilities in Japan that are very much like, no, we don't do education here. It's just about like aquariums, where it's like, it's just about the atmosphere.
Sure.
There's no signage. There's no educators. The point is to just immerse yourself in this peaceful and pretty place.
Right.
They kind of actively avoid education because I don't know how common that is, but I know I've from people who have been there and from reading things.
I don't think Nora's in the chat.
Yeah.
Otherwise, Nora could let us know.
So, like, I'm sure there might be... your mileage might vary if a different culture has a different view on what an aquarium or a zoo is.
Well, and you mentioned AZA, which is the Association of Zoos and Aquariums, which I think is a North American
That one is North American.
organization.
There is an international version of it.
Sure.
But I don't remember what it's
So, like,
called.
your regulations will also be different from place to place.
Yes.
And some of that is cultural, and some of that is just, like, financial.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you might not have the money in some places to do it.
Well,
And then some of it might just be, like, I was at a zoo in, I think it was the Beijing Zoo many years ago. And it was fun. And then there were a few things about the zoo that I was like, this is not how I would have made a zoo.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that's something about the region that it's in, or if it's just that zoo.
Yep.
But just like here in the States, sometimes you go to a zoo and it's like, this was an odd choice.
Yes.
I would have put more of a barrier between the guests and the chimps. This seems like, I don't know, I'm not a zoo expert.
Yep.
But again, I don't know how much difference you get cultural versus governmental, because a lot of these facilities are either part of the government or supported by the government, and so depending on how much educational priority the government is taking, so there's a lot of reasons why it can vary.
Yes. This is I think a great example to kind of get that variation and the fact that it doesn't guarantee anything one way or the other. As a general rule, if you're an AZA facility, you are a no contact facility. You don't go into the habitat and touch the animals. There are exceptions. There's animal ambassadors that are used for handling. There are touch pools at AZA aquariums. So those are usually exceptions. So if you ever see a video of a person touching the animal, petting a tiger, anything like that, it's by definition can't be AZA. That can't be an AZA facility. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean they are doing bad job, but they are doing something that is not allowed at AZA. For example, one of my favorite Instagram accounts is a gator rehabilitation, a crocodilian rehabilitation place, and he gets in the water with them and is touching them, but he's also doing that to try to desensitize them to that kind of interaction. But he's doing stuff that would not be allowed in AZA, but he is taking great care of the animals he has. So it's just, your mileage will vary depending on what you're looking for and depending on what their specific situation is.
Yeah.
But in general, pro zoo, pro aquarium, I think we are better off with them than without them.
We've been going for about an hour. There's a whole bunch more comments here. Everybody, thank you all so much. Is there other news that you wanted to mention? We don't have to wrap up right this minute, but we could do more of a lightning round.
One for sure that I wanted to mention. The other one is just a overview of basically pharmaceuticals for crocodilians.
Oh, cool.
That's looking at that's doing a review of what is currently known on dosage and treatment for antibiotics in crocodiles.
That's cool.
And you'll get that with zoos and aquariums, that they have publishing, there are journals for zoos and aquariums. They're like, hey, someone did research on how to anesthetize or do this surgery on this animal. Here it is for everyone to use. Now we know how to do, a heart surgery on an orangutan because someone published when they had to do it.
Yeah, that's cool.
This is one of those. This is doing a review of that because maybe surprisingly, maybe unsurprisingly to people, medicating animals is really tricky because every single animal has a different metabolism, and there is not enough of an industry to make individual species medicine. So you have to go, this is our reptile meds. Here's all the steps you have to do to make it work for this reptile versus this reptile versus this reptile versus this reptile.
And that's species to species before you even get into individual.
Yes.
Like with humans, where it's like, you can't take this medicine because you're allergic. Or, for whatever reason, this medicine just doesn't work on you.
Yeah, you're just not responding to it.
You're redheaded, so this thing just doesn't do it for you.
Yeah, I need twice the numbing agent.
Yep. So it's complicated. And, for something like crocs, it's probably a little bit, but like for a rarer species of croc, if there's only like 12 in captivity, well, then who knows how much of the 13th croc might have a completely different needs than the other ones.
And that's why you'll get specialist facilities to where it's like, certain animals, there's really only a handful of places that take care of them just because they're the only ones that have learned how yet. And that has not spread enough for those animals to make it to other places.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
That's a cool study.
The other one is about multiple paternity in smooth-fronted caimans, where doing genetic studies on clutches of eggs found that the clutches often had at least 2 different male parents.
Huh.
And this is something that's common in lots of groups, like cats are famous. That's why a cat litter can be all different colors, because each color's a different male that cat mated with and got genetics from, and that's an orange one and a black one and a tabby one. This is common, and this was talking about the fact that, how did they put it? That the as we've learned more about it, the identification of multiple paternity is been found across all vertebrate classes.
Cool. This adds to my gator parent deity, who's just like big mama gator with just like a bunch of males around.
Yep. Absolutely. So they found that, let's see, where is it? They took samples from 3 populations, 5 groups, and when you looked at the markers, they found a minimum number of fathers that sired each clutch. Results clearly show that multiple paternity was common, with 60% sampled showing a minimum of 2 sires. And so at more than half had at least 2 males. At least 2. It sounded like that there were some that had more than that participated to the genetics of that clutch of eggs.
Interesting. That's cool.
Really neat.
That's very cool.
I like learning this stuff just because, A, it's nice to shake up the gender norms that we so often apply to animals, to be like, it's not how it works.
Right, monogamy, like our Western cultural instilled values.
Exactly. Like, that's not how it works with animals. You need to expect it not to work that way. But also just the idea that changes the behaviors that we might expect for this animal, because like in a documentary, they show, and the female has mated, and now she'll go lay her eggs. It's like, all right, but that's not actually how it happens more than half the times. The female has mated, and then the female has mated, and then the female has mated, and now she's going to go lay her eggs.
Well, and sometimes it's, and the female has mated, and then mated, and then mated, and now she will choose which of those mates to utilize their donation to make babies.
That stuff like that, and I can't think of a species off the top of my head that can do that, but there are multiple species that can select whose sperm they are going to use.
Yes.
And that's crazy.
Well, and then there's others that, and now the female has mated, and she cannot mate again because the mating process made some change to the anatomy of the body that blocks any more mating attempts.
Because he left a plug.
Yep.
Like, crazy.
We got a whole bunch of comments here. Our audience is being very cool. Let's do another like 20 minutes. We can go through these.
I'm having a great
We can go
time.
through a bunch of these. All right, so Kayleen said the WAZA is the international version of the AZA.
I knew it was something similar to AZA, but I couldn't remember.
The WAZA. Also, the IUCN is another accreditation institution.
Yeah, there is another
for conservation initiatives.
And there's also another. It's like the AL something, I can't remember, but there's another that is the step down from AZA. That is a little less strict, a little less accredited and respected, so to speak. But there is a baby version of AZA for zoos and stuff here. And then there's also like the bare minimum, which is the government's standards.
Right.
Like, you need these things to keep animals, and us consider it not animal cruelty.
Yes. Yeah, like the law, like legally, like
those
you will be arrested if you're not meeting these standards.
And those are by many animals pretty low.
Yeah.
So that's why they use these other standards.
Why the AZA exists.
And like I can't remember the name of it, but the step down version, a lot of facilities use it largely because it's cheaper than AZA, and they just can't afford the accreditation costs.
The same thing is true with like museums.
Yeah.
There's accreditation for museums. And some museums don't have the accreditation because they just don't have some of the facility that's required, and it costs money to get through the process.
Yeah.
But then you get a stamp.
Yes.
And the stamp goes, this is, and sometimes it comes with like, you are now part of a group of these accredited organizations.
Well, you can post your job listings on the AZA site or the museum site. So yeah, if you're not part of those organizations, it doesn't mean you are a bad museum or zoo or an aquarium.
Yes.
But if you are a patron going to one of those and you notice that it is not accredited, just pay attention.
Yes.
That's my rule, is just be aware that, all right, they aren't accredited. So if you do see something that looks a little hinky, then it might be because of that.
We got a whole bunch. Oh, there's so many. You people are awesome. What was Ali said, quick shout out to my good friend Claude, the albino alligator at the California Academy of Sciences, who celebrated his 30th birthday this year.
I saw the post about him turning 30.
Great. I got to see Claude. I was at the Academy of Sciences over there many years ago.
Yay.
Quicksilver, also a shout out. People are talking about the Omaha Zoo, but Quicksilver mentioned being there during the National Science Olympiad tournament. Shout out to Science Olympiad. That's how I got started.
Nice.
Speaking of how you... Oh, and also some people mentioned... Oh, man. I want to knock out a bunch of these references to stuff we were talking about. Thomas is here, said, love your show, just found your channel a few months ago. Wanted to say thanks. Thank you.
Welcome.
Cole brought up the Egyptian croc god Sobek.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, if you're going to... I can't imagine you could live in Egypt and not end up with a croc deity, because they're
kind
of a big deal.
And I don't know that the one they reference in the movie is a real mythical croc, but the movie Dark Ages is about a croc who is, and like the movie keeps it vague as to whether or not it actually is, or if it's just a croc representing that, a spirit croc for the Aboriginal people, like they have a story, and I almost have the name. It's Watanabe, something like that. It's something close to that.
Ken Watanabe. Well, Australia, I don't know anything about Australia, like indigenous cultures and such. I would be a little bit surprised if there weren't croc mythological beings. Well, there's snakes.
Yes.
And that's another one. Like crocs, snakes are everywhere, and so they end up in mythologies.
Yeah, they've got the rainbow serpent, which is like one of the big members in their mythology. It's very like stories of it creating the canyons by slithering across the land and stuff like that.
Yeah,
awesome stuff.
Miles also, on the note of mythological crocs, mentioned Skeledirge, a singing croc. I love the idea of a singing croc.
I love that they did that.
They are so vocal, and it is such a major part of their lifestyle.
Yup.
All right, let's knock out some quick ones. Janelle was up here telling us who Ajoa Ando is, and I'm sorry, I don't know any of those things. But also asked any reason we could or couldn't get Croc flight.
Oh yeah. So, like, no inherent reason they couldn't evolve a flying member, but the especially current body shape is very far from being the right shape for flying.
Yeah, I imagine you'd have to have started with the little bipedal pseudosuchians in the Triassic and gone the same direction that pterosaurs and birds did.
Yes, exactly. So if those had survived, then yeah, the ancestors for crocs are ridiculously similarly shaped to the ancestors of dinosaurs because they're both archosaurs. So,
and at a certain point, they're the same ancestors.
Exactly. So like, those ancestors, there's no reason that they couldn't have done the same thing they did with pterosaurs or birds on the croc side. They didn't. Today, for our crocs to do it, you'd have to get back to being a terrestrial, long-limbed animal so that we had something to get a flight surface off of, whatever kind of flight surface you end up evolving.
Mm-hmm.
That would take a long time, I think.
Well, you could go like Charovipteryx and use the legs, the back legs, and make a delta wing croc.
So it's one of those where it's not impossible, but I think it would take longer than them evolving to other lifestyles, just because you'd have to go through many other phases of type of croc.
Back on the mythological croc stuff, Garrick brought up Bosek. Bosk, the Trandoshan bounty hunter who looks kind of like a croc.
Yeah.
And I think this is a question about like, what's up with that?
Yeah.
Tell me about Bosk.
Bosk is one of the bounty hunters they hire in Empire Strikes Back when he has them all lined up on the ship.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yep. He's the lizard dude.
Yeah.
And wearing a flight suit, which is an old flight suit from another movie. I can't remember the other movie, but
like a reused.
Yeah, they reused it
or costume.
Which makes it even funnier because it mostly doesn't fit him. Like, he has his big arms and legs exposed, which now knowing it's secondhand makes it look like it's secondhand.
Yes.
Trandoshans in Star Wars are definitely leaning a little more lizardy, at least in the way the artists and writers are trying to portray them. Even though what they are portraying is not actually very lizardy, they can regrow their limbs like Dr. Connors.
Like Dr. Connors, yeah. Which lizards don't do.
Mm-mm. They tend to hiss when they speak.
Which lizards mostly don't do.
Yeah, I believe they have forked tongues, which some lizards.
Yep. Lizards are off. It's like a grab bag for herps.
Yeah.
Herptile features. Anything salamander, frog, snake, reptile, you can just throw in there.
Yes. So yeah, there are some Star Wars crocs. There's the croc turtle that's in season 3 of Mandalorian. That shows up.
I don't remember if I saw season 3.
Yeah, I don't think you did.
Yeah.
That giant croc turtle attacks the Mandalorians.
That's cool.
Is just for a big monster fight scene.
Is this why I vaguely recall Mandalorian season 3 came out, and a handful of our listeners were like, "Have you watched Mandalorian season 3 yet?"
That's what it was.
That was what.
Which were very cool looking. Kind of wrong shaped skulls for being aquatic because they had very tall heads. They were shaped much more like they should have been living on land. I know there are croc creatures in the Bad Batch. They have a swamp scene. I haven't seen that season yet, so I haven't actually seen what they call these. That looked from the thing just like crocodiles. I think they had more legs, which is what Star Wars often does, to be like, we want to use this animal, but like,
throw a couple more legs on it.
Yeah, we don't want to change. Like, we want it to be recognizable as that animal.
It's a croc, but it's Loki's son.
Yes. Yep.
I feel like there's not enough snakes in Star Wars.
Yeah,
there was the snake in the episode 9.
Yep.
That Rey becomes friends with.
Yes. There are some, like, there's snaky things that show up in, like, expanded universe stuff.
Sure.
And no, that one's not particular. That's more like a salamander.
Let me down.
Then not a lot of snakes. I think it's snake is one of those where we've talked about this before, that one of the only main ways to make it monstrous is to make it big.
Yeah. The snakes are very one note when
Yeah.
it comes to fantasy and movies and stuff most of the time.
And so like I know that there are other snakes, but they're usually like you know, a viper exists on this planet, and
Yes.
we've used it as a plot device, or I think like there's someone like named after the something viper. So they'll use them for stuff like that, but yeah, they don't get the big combat scenes the same way.
Cool. Elias asked, lost it. What's your favorite Triassic pseudotsuchians?
Ooh,
I think Adosaurs are so cool.
that it's hard not to pick them just because they are so unique and bizarre.
Yeah.
Like,
I also think Phytosaurs are really cool.
yeah,
That's tons of fun. Episode 42
yeah.
for Phytosaur. No, not 142. Whoa, wow, we're live. People are gonna see that I make mistakes.
Shut it down.
No, close it. Delete the archive. 142 was Phytosaurs.
One of the things I like about Adosaurs that doesn't get mentioned as often is they also have these upturned, like, kind of piggy looking snouts.
Like a little hog-nosed snake snout.
So a lot of people interpret it as them probably going for like root vegetables, like going for tubers or something, something equivalent. I don't know. Tell Allie we need to
I had the
tubers.
Same. There were not tubers because I'm pretty sure all of the Garrick's in here somewhere. I want to say all of the things that are tubers are flowering plants.
Yeah, I assumed that was actually a specific structure.
Yeah, but like there might have been truffles.
Meaty roots, and truffles.
Because truffles have evolved multiple times.
Well, because I assume something
Fungi.
tuber-esque has probably evolved.
Sure.
Like, storing nutrients in your roots can't have been...
Right.
Only one time plants have thought of that. Like, that's where you hide stuff, is underground.
Snake in The Empire Strikes Back on Yoda's swamp planet.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yep.
Oh, and yeah, Steve also pointed that out. Snakes on Dagobah.
Yep.
It's like we got a bunch of nerds in our Common Descent audience.
And that's one of those great examples where it's just boas. Boas are native to Dagobah.
That's awesome. All right, let's see. We've got... Oh, Zelphia asked... I'm going to do Zelphia's question last, I think, because that's a very fun one to end on. Magnafox asked... I've heard an off comment that crocodilians in captivity all have some form of metabolic bone disease, and that a lot of work with crocs in captivity is managing it. Is that true?
You definitely can get stuff like that. I don't know enough details to give you like a full answer, but you do get certain consistent issues that tend to show up. One of the most common outwardly visible ones is they get deformed jaws.
Yes.
It is a really common thing that alligators very famously, but all I've seen examples in almost every crocodilian species, either just a picture online or in person, that when they are raised in in captivity, their teeth tend to splay out.
Yeah.
It's almost like the lower jaw, so lower jaw's shaped like a wishbone. It's almost like it's gotten rotated. And the top jaw as well, the teeth are just
so
this.
They stick out straight, more like a shrew or something like that.
There's that one dinosaur that has the really weird splay teeth.
Well, like I think Majungasaurus, I think, has it where the jaw tilts downward and the teeth kind of point forward. It's kind of like that.
And to my knowledge, maybe there is someone more knowledgeable than me that does know this, but I've talked to every single time I've gotten to talk to a handler that works with the crocodilians at any facility that I've ever been to, I've asked this question. And the answer has always been, we don't know. We don't know why that happens. It could be a nutrition thing that's causing it, but it does not seem to be consistent. Like I've talked to other facilities where their alligators did not show any signs of that. and they were seeming to feed them the same stuff that the other facilities were. Some think that it might be if their habitat has concrete, that resting on the concrete pushes the bones and the gravity causes them to grow differently.
I've also heard it suggested that it might be a weakening of the jaw muscles or tissues, that if they're not using them as actively as they would in the wild for catching food and stuff,
the lack of those stresses is causing the bone, and this is true in our bodies, that your bone is basically growing and expecting, like genetically there
are certain stresses that our body is built to, like if this is why you don't develop properly if you're in zero gravity.
Exactly.
Like if you were a baby, no one's ever done this but like if you were a baby in zero gravity and then grew up to adulthood, you would not develop like a typical earthbound human's body would, because your body isn't going to be getting the stress and pressure signals that it relies on during development.
Exactly. And your bones also grow under the pressures of the muscles attached. It is that we evolved for those bones to grow under the strains of using said muscles. If you're not using said muscles, then the bones are growing without the proper responsive strain, so you can get deformations. We don't know for sure why that happens. I know that I don't know how much that connects to the degenerative bone stuff. That's getting slightly outside of my expertise into like the actual medical field.
Yes.
But yeah, we do get. There's also the issue that many of the gators that you see in places are potential, especially if it's not a AZA facility, can be potentially inbred because they come from gator farms, and gator farms provide meat and skin, but they also provide individuals for a lot of places, and that's the case with a lot of your albino and leucistic alligators. Is those often come from the same parents, the same breeding individuals, and to maintain conditions like albinism and leucicity, you often have to kind of interbreed because it is a genetically past condition. So you have to select for it by not letting them breed with typically colored alligators, because that could undo your albinism. So you might be also getting it from stuff like that, but that, like I said, slightly outside my speciality.
Miles has pointed out that phytosaurs are not pseudosuchians.
Yes.
They are outside of pseudosuchia. Crocs.
They are the sister group to I think they are in Suchia. So they're not in Pseudosuchia, but I think they are within currently, because they've also moved around a lot. They are in, so Archosaur, you have the dinosaur lineage that is ornithodires, and then Suchia, which is the Croc side. I believe phytosaurs are at the base of Suchia, inside Suchia. I think it's been, previously they had been suspected to maybe be just outside of it, maybe in between the two. They moved around a bunch. Go listen to the Phytosaurs episode to remember all the things I used to know about their phylogeny.
Episode 142. Garrick agrees with me that tubers are probably all flowering plants. There are others with edible rhizomes. Steve points out that cycads have tuberish things.
Yeah.
Great. Listen, these are the local plant experts.
So just picture an adasaur just rooting, and I'd love it.
Also, Garrick has pointed out a thing that I have also learned recently, is that potatoes are not root tubers, they're stem tubers.
Oh, right.
Because weird. Go listen to Leave It to Us, where I think that maybe came up. Garrick also said there's a fantasy book trilogy called Echoes of the Fall where the characters transform into animals, and one of the main characters is from a clan where they can all transform into crocodiles.
Nice.
That's cool.
That makes me think of, and I don't know all the detail. This came from a documentary I used to watch as a kid, so they may have butchered it. But that there is practices, at least in certain African communities, of scarification, where you purposely create scars like tattooing, and you can make patterns, and that in some of their cultures they'll use it to make scars on the back that are like the osteoderms of a crocodile.
Oh yeah.
And it's representing the crocodile. It's paying respect to. I think they also have some further beliefs, but I don't want to cite those since
Sure.
I do not know if that very well could have been one of those where it's like, this makes good TV, we'll put it in the documentary, because it was an old 90s documentary.
Yeah. One last question before we wrap it up. Zelfia asked, can you tell the story of how you fell in love with Crocs? How did you choose to study them? Obsession, opportunity, or both? Now, for the sake of time, I will point out that we did a few years ago, a special bonus episode for Croc Month that was Croc Chat with Will,
Yes.
where you did like the extended version of this answer.
Yes.
But if you want to give sort of the short version here,
Happily.
and then go check that out. If you go to the website, there is a Croc and Snake Month page that lists all of our past Croc and Snake Month episodes.
So I do not have like a memory to share of when I fell in love with them, because it, to my knowledge, happened before the memories I have were formed.
Sure.
I can't remember.
It was implanted it was put in you before your parents put you in a
Yes.
pod and sent you to Earth.
It was just my pregnant mother playing Steve Irwin at her belly.
Will's mom actually got eaten by an alligator while pregnant, and that's what happened. Will was born to an alligator.
Yes. But
Your mom is lovely, and I would not wish that. Upon her.
right. But my first birthday, my mom took pictures of it and shared those pictures with me after, because of course I didn't remember being 1 year old. But she showed me these pictures when I was still young, so I have very early memories of the cake and birthday card that she had got and made. The birthday card was a little red alligator and had its tail arced up over, and it's just this little cartoony alligator, and opened the card up from like the tail, I think, or whatever, and she made a cake that she had sculpted to be the same alligator. So she cut it into the same way, put red frosting on it, did the eyes and everything. And she did a really good job because my mom's artsy and awesome. It looks basically like, if you look at the picture, it looks store-bought. But I know
for
that
the same store that sold
yes,
the card.
But
Yep.
I'm 90% sure, and maybe she will correct me and be like, no, I bought that. But my memory of the story is that she made it, and she showed it to me, and I thought it was super cool that she had done that. And that's the earliest memory I have connected with them. And just since then, I've loved them. I like the way they look. I have tons of stuffed animals. You might be able to glimpse one of them peeking right there, that little guy. I've had him since I was single digits. This little alligator right here, head sticking off. I've had that guy since I was single digits. So I've always loved them. I thought they were cool. I thought they were powerful. Mm-hmm. I think it was bolstered by the fact that I was a dinosaur kid, as many of us paleontologists were. And they are, other than birds, the closest thing to having modern big dinosaurs around today. Like, they're big, scaly, powerful predators.
They're the closest thing in terms of vibes.
Yes. Like, they are our largest reptilian predators today. So yeah, I just fell in love with them, and just I also loved things like Wally Gator and stuff like that. And so it has always been my favorite group of animals, without really any competition. Like I said, I can't remember a time before loving Crocs.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, my laptop battery is low.
Perfect.
So this is a perfect time to stop. Listeners, thank you all so much for joining us for this live stream. This is extremely cool. We've got like 30 people in here, which is amazing that 30 people want to hang out with us on a Tuesday evening to talk about Crocs and stuff. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you for your engagement, for chatting with us, for giving us great questions and stuff. It's Croc Month, so you can go over to the Discord and hang out in the Croc chat. Go over there and tell us who you would cast as crocodilians in the Crocs versus Snakes movie. Please do that. Cast some women, because we were very... we went with like all of like the deep resonant voiced, and so we cast a whole bunch of like large men.
It was the combination of I'm bad at remembering actor names, so I forget people's names, and I'm vicariously casting men as the Crocs because I want to be the Crocs.
Yes. So go check out the Croc chat. Go do that. Viola Davis could be a Croc.
Ooh, yeah.
She could also be a snake, but Viola Davis could be whatever she wants. Go to the Croc chat in the Discord. Check out episode 220 comes out this weekend, which will be Croc themed.
It's a good one.
It's going to be a lot of fun. Celebrate Crocs. Enjoy Crocs. On Patreon, the Crocs and Snakes tier is now available. You get Croc and Snake Month stickers. It is available only during June. It will change slightly in July, and then it will be gone after July. Contributions that we receive at those tiers during these months will contribute to charitable donations we will be making at the end of the summer to Crocodilian Research Coalition, Save the Snakes, and the National Parks Conservation Association here in the U.S. for supporting our reptile-y friends. Yay. It's a great way to support us and the podcast, and to support conservation and stuff.
It's good.
Next month will be Snake Month. In July, we will have snaky episodes. The Crocs and Snakes tier will be Snakes and Crocs. The Croc chat will be closed on Discord and will be replaced by Snake stuff. And we will have a Snake Month live stream, which will be just like this one, but better, on July 16th, which is, I think, also a Tuesday or a Wednesday. It's sometime around here in the thing. So check that out. Come join us for that. In addition to all those things, other things that are going on, Happy Pride Month, everybody.
Happy Pride.
Hearts for everybody. This is how I do this. I can't,
one.
My fingers don't bend that way. Happy Pride Month. Happy summer. There were other things I was going to say. Go check out Leave It to Us.
Yeah.
5 episodes have already been released. It's awesome. The latest episode was, oh boy.
Now you've got 2 lists of
episodes. And I have episode 6 is coming out soon, and episode 6 is so fun. I really like episode 6. Episode 5 is probably good too. Check out Bricks with Basque, which is here on YouTube. Will Makes Lego Creations. This month will almost certainly be themed. I say almost certainly like I don't already know what it is.
Yep.
Something crocky. And next month, I am going to be at the Royal Tyrrell Museum in Alberta, in Drumheller, on July 19th. So that's going to be a museum meetup. Stay tuned for details. I'm working out the final stuff. But Nora and I will both be there at the Royal Tyrrell if you want to come say hi to us at the museum. Yeah. That's the week of World Snake Day. Which is just like we planned it. my laptop has officially shut off. It is...
I'm leaving.
I'm tired and I'm done. So now I'm going to scooch in real close to see what comments people have said. Now I'm right next to the mic, which is probably not great. Excellent. Fantastic. Great. Okay. None of those comments are things that I have to respond to. It's just people saying nice stuff.
Being wonderful. Thank
you all so much. Enjoy this Croc Day. Enjoy Croc Month. Thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next month for the next one. That's all the announcements. Also, Dragon Con's going to happen at some point, but we'll talk about that more later.
Yay.
Great.
I'm going to go watch Lake Placid and make minis.
A proper celebration. Let us know how you're celebrating World Croc Day. All right, let's get out of here.
Bye, everyone.
Sign off phrase, but Crocs.
Yay.
Excellent.